Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is a very special episode for me because I am celebrating the 5-year anniversary of the MSing Link, my online MS wellness program. And the actual date of the 5-year anniversary is December 3rd. So we're slightly behind that. But December 3rd is the day where I remember going to work. It was a day that I had to work starting at 7 a.m. in the physical therapy clinic, but I had pressed publish on the MSing Link for the very first time before going into work that day. And I remember it was in the afternoon and I had about 2 minutes to spare. In the physical therapy world, you are seeing clients back to back to back to back, and there's not much downtime. And when there is downtime, usually you're typing notes or documenting. But I happened to have 2 spare minutes without anything to do as I was waiting for my next patient to come in. And I thought, I'm going to go check online. I'm going to see if anyone signed up for the MSing Link. And my heart is racing as I share this story because I remember the very first person. I remember her first and last name. I won't share it now just because I want her to remain anonymous. But I remember logging in and seeing that this person signed up. And not only that, she signed up for the annual membership. There was an option for monthly, semi-annual, or annual. And she signed up for the annual membership, which in my mind, I was like, whoa, this means that she's committed. Like she sees the value in this program and she's committed to using it to better herself and get stronger and walk better and feel more confident. And so it just blew me away that she went right in for the annual membership. And not only that, but she was from Australia. Now, meanwhile, I'm living in Boston, Massachusetts, working in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and someone from Australia signs up. She's my very first client ever. And everything about this experience was so validating because I thought that there was this need for online-based resources for physical therapy, helping people with multiple sclerosis. Because the whole reason that I developed it was that so many of my clients in person had difficulty getting to me just because of their symptoms or transportation or weather or XYZ. There were so many valid reasons that they couldn't come to PT consistently. And as we all know, if you don't come to PT consistently, you're not going to reap the benefits of that. So I thought there was this need, but you never know how much something is needed until you create it and put it out there and then just leave it up to the universe and see what happens. And so this was just so much validation that it was needed. And not only that, but it was needed worldwide, which was one of my huge missions to help as many people as I can with MS, not just the people who lived in my area who could get to me in the in-person physical therapy clinic. So that was my first ever client who signed up. It's such a vivid memory. I will never forget it. But I wanted to take you on a bit of a journey of the MSing Link and kind of share with you a behind the scenes look at how it went down, why it started, and the growth that we've had within these 5 years. So as I mentioned, the MSing Link launched on December 3rd of 2018, but a lot of work went into it before that date. And I actually started brainstorming this idea probably back in April or May of 2018. And in June is when I finally sat down and thought to myself, okay, I need to write a plan. That something like this is so needed. My patients can't get to me consistently. And not only that, my patients were driving to me from about an hour to 2 hours away. At the time, I was only one of 4 physical therapists that was also an MS specialist in the entire state of Massachusetts. And unfortunately, there are not many more specialists now than there were back then. There's a few more, but it's still not very popular or even people just don't know about it. And so I knew there was this need. So many people were unable to work with an MS specialized physical therapist. And so I finally, in June of 2018, thought to myself, let me write down what I'm even thinking. Let me get these thoughts out of my brain. And the time where I wrote this down in June, it was probably June 1st or June 2nd. And I happened to be in Nashville at the annual MS conference that year. And my sister came with me. Every now and then she would come with me on those conferences, and she would just hang out in the hotel room and enjoy herself while I was in the conference all day. But I got back from the meetings one day and I said, Sam, her name's Samantha, I call her Sam. I said, Sam, I need to write this stuff down. I know that this is needed. I know it's going to provide value, but I just got to get this out of my head. And I am holding in front of me, if you're watching or listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but I'm holding in front of me literally the scrap pieces of paper. They're 5 years old now. Oh my gosh, 5.5 years. They look a little dingy, but it's the small little notepads that you'll get from the hotels that you stay at. It's that. I must have stayed at the Omni Hotels and Resort because that's what it says on here. And it's my notes. And it says things like, why am I going to create the missing link? Who is the missing link going to be for? And actually, at this time, I didn't even have a name for it. So it wasn't, I don't, anywhere on here, I don't think I have something that says the missing link. It just says why, who, what would I offer? How would I be different? What I'm not, because I knew that there were also at least one, if not a few other people out there offering MS-based guidance. And I wanted to differentiate who I am and who I'm not. How can I help that's different from what else is currently available? What things would be free? What things would be paid? Some concerns that I had. And then I went into writing down what some next steps might be, which included things like asking people to participate in a pilot or a beta group. And I wrote down some names of people I had in mind. And then I wrote down some other things that I would have to think about as time went on, like planning the content launch. How much would this cost? How frequently would I post new videos? How would I go about advertising? And on the very last page, it says, what would I have that's recurring? Because I knew I wanted this to be a membership, not just a one-off program. Because in my opinion, one-off programs are great, but you're less likely to stay consistent with them. At least that's what I found personally and for 99% of my clients. And so I wanted to plan, what would I have that is new content on a recurring basis. And now that I'm looking at it, it's funny because we still have so many of these things, but it's with a different twist now. So we had guest speakers. I was thinking about having monthly webinars, accountability, giveaways, a monthly calendar with a theme for each month. So these are the actual notes that I was looking at. My why was for broader outreach. My who was for people who had poor access to physical therapy that was MS specialized. So it's just really cool looking back on these notes and now seeing where the missing link is. But I was sitting in a bar in Nashville with my sister as I was writing these notes. I remember we planned which bar we were going to go to. It was at a high top table and we were sitting by the window. It was probably around 4:30 p.m. We were going to go somewhere else for dinner. And right before we left the hotel, I grabbed this notepad because I was like, I'm going to have to write it down. So I grabbed the notepad and the pen that came with it. And we went off, and then that was the beginning of the missing link. So that was in the very beginning of June. Later in June is when I started my Dr. Gretchen Instagram account because I already had another Instagram account at the time and felt very confident using that platform and sharing free education and knowledge on that platform. And so I started that a few weeks later. Now, at this time, personally, I was living in Boston, Massachusetts, as I mentioned earlier. And it's crazy to think about these last 5 years because within these 5 years, I actually have had 5 moves. I was living in Boston when creating the missing link. And once I got home from that trip of deciding, okay, what is my content going to be? Who is this going to help? How am I going to help? I started that Instagram page. I almost immediately went to work on exactly planning out the specifics, every single detail about the program. And I filmed all of the videos for the MSing Link in my apartment that I was living in at the time. It was my first ever apartment that I was living alone, that I didn't have roommates. And I loved it. I loved that freedom. But Boston is extremely expensive. And so the apartment that I had was a ground level apartment, which was fine. It was a very safe place, but it didn't get great lighting. And so before I even produced content, I purchased lights that could make the rooms look brighter. I purchased, now I can't think of what they're called, but I purchased these things that look like egg crates that you put on the walls to make it less echoey because it was super echoey in there. So I purchased all of the things and then I got to business. I'm the type of person where once I get an idea in my mind of something that excites me and I know that it can help others, I don't delay. I immediately get to work on producing that thing. And so I started making all of the videos, but my landlord at the time wouldn't let me paint any walls. And so for several of the videos, and these are still actually up in the MSing Link, for several of the first videos, I'm in a specific room. It was the office that I was using at that time in the apartment because it was a 1.5 bedroom. And there is just a blue sheet of fabric hanging up behind me. I went to Joann Fabrics and purchased a color blue that I liked. I don't know, I got a few yards of it and just hung it up, tacked it to the wall, and that is what was behind me in lots of those videos. And it's funny, I'm realizing this as I'm speaking right now. My now home office is also blue, but the whole room is painted blue. I don't have a sheet hanging up behind me, so full circle moment. But anyways, so I just have such vivid memories of the first steps of getting to create that content. So I created all of the exercise videos in my apartment, and I was really excited about that because considering one of my main reasons for starting the MSing Link was because my patients weren't able to get to me. That meant that they were in their homes. They weren't able to get to anyone. They weren't able to leave their homes consistently enough to do their MS specific exercises. So it was really important for me to demonstrate every exercise and every class in my home. And so the educational videos inside the MSing Link were recorded in my office with that blue sheet hanging behind me. But the exercise videos were recorded in my living room or in my kitchen. And those videos are still up in the MSing Link. They're still some of my favorites. And so that was really meaningful to me because I thought that when people see this, it will be so clear to them that they don't need anything fancy, that they can do these exercises from their love seat that they're currently sitting on, or from their sofa, from their chair, from their bed, from the kitchen sink. It was extremely accessible. And one thing that you will see in these videos is that my dog, Finn, who is a Pomeranian poodle mix, he randomly pops in behind the scenes in almost every video. And it's so funny because when I'm recording, I never know that he's there. It's not until I was watching the recordings and going back to review them and edit them that I realized he popped in them. So in many of the videos, he'll just walk in and then out, or he'll be sitting on my couch, and he has made all the moves with me. He is still alive and well. He is 10 years old now, meaning he was 5 at the time, which is so crazy, but he still makes appearances in my videos. Since then, Finn and I have moved several times. The first move was to Maine. And the reason for this was because the MSing Link had really taken off. This was about May of the following year, where the MSing Link was really taking off. I wasn't happy at my job anymore. I was thinking about doing travel physical therapy. So I did sign on as a contractor with a travel physical therapy company, but they only needed me for 5 weeks. And so at the end of those 5 weeks, I decided instead of signing on for another contract, I'm just going to run with the MSing Link, see where this goes, see how far I can take it. And in the meantime, I'm going to move in with my sister in Maine, and she was living in Kennebunkport, Maine. And so I moved in with her. Several of the videos are also in her house, but Finn and I moved there. We only stayed there for about 3 or 4 months or so. And then we moved back to my hometown in an apartment that is basically next door to my parents' house. When I was living there is when I met my now husband. So then we moved into my husband's house that he owned at the time. And when I say we moved, I mean Finn and I. So we moved into my husband's house, and then we actually bought a house together, and we've been living here for about a year. So lots of different moves within these 5 years. That's at least 4 moves, maybe even 5. But there's videos in each of them. I didn't let that stop me. If anything, it propelled me to help even more people, showing that not only can you do these in your own home, but you can do them anywhere. You can do them in anyone else's home, out in the community. There's so many options. Now, as you might know, there are several things that I title the missing link now. So it started with my Instagram page, where I was offering a bunch of free content, free education, exercises, which then led to my online MS wellness program called the Missing Link. And then pretty shortly after, I want to say maybe about 6 months or so later, I started my YouTube channel as just another platform to share longer form videos where, again, I could educate and demonstrate some exercises on YouTube. So that was the next platform that started. And then in September of 2021, it was September 8th, I launched my podcast, which podcasting is something I never thought I would do because I don't listen personally. I don't listen to many podcasts, but I have fallen in love with podcasting. I think it's such a unique way to reach people and help even more people. And I love that I can reach people that are on the go. If you're going out to do errands, you can listen to an episode, or if you're cleaning the house, or even if you're just bored and listening, it's a great way to meet you where you're at. You don't have to be home and on a computer or looking at something. You can just be on the move. So September 2021 is when I started my podcast. Later that year in December, I launched an app, and the app was really exciting. The app is called the Missing Link app as well. And it was really exciting because it's an opportunity where you can not only access a bunch of resources and videos, but also track your exercises, track your movement, track your functional outcome measures or your day-to-day tests that you can do, track your hydration, track your symptoms. And so it's kind of an all-in-one place where you can learn, access the online MS Wellness program if you're a member, but also keep track of things. And there's a fun chat in there as well. And then the most recent way that I've expanded within these 5 years is this past July when I launched the Missing Link book. And this too is something that I don't think I ever thought I would be a published author. It was never really my goal or my vision that I would be a published author. But I hit a point in January of this past year where I just felt like I have so many resources out there. I have Instagram, I have YouTube, I have Facebook, I have TikTok, I have Twitter, I have my online MS wellness program, I have the app, the podcast, where I share tons of resources. But there's very few places where all of that information is in one place. One place that you can find that is inside the Missing Link online MS Wellness program, but there's nowhere that all of my information is written down. And of course, the book doesn't include all of my information. That would probably be 5,000 pages, but it includes my most pertinent and powerful information. And so writing the book really just came from seeing that there was a need for that book, not because I wanted to be a published author or anything like that. So the book is probably my most surprising advancement that has come out of these last 5 years. It's something that I never imagined I would do. And the launch of the book was so successful. I think within the first 3 weeks, there were about 3,500 copies sold. It hit the number one bestseller and stayed there for like 10 days. And it was number one bestseller in 5 different categories. So again, it was another opportunity for me to see and feel validated that this thing that I thought was needed actually was needed. So that launched in July. And then I'm actually currently turning that into an audiobook, which should be available next month in January. So I will put the links for all of those, the podcast, the YouTube, the app, the book, and eventually when the audiobook is released, I can add that here as well. So if you are interested in any of those other resources, you can check the show notes. So I also wanted to discuss with you not only personally how things have changed throughout these last 5 years, but also what has changed in the MSing Link. So when I launched the MSing Link, the staples were that there were a basic set of exercises that came with a calendar that told you exactly which exercises to do each day for strengthening and stretching your body. And that now has grown to a whole bunch more exercises and even more calendars, including how to improve your walking and improve your balance. And one of my favorite features is something called the index. And this is where I took the feedback I was hearing from a lot of MSing Link members, which was, I'm loving your program, but what exercises do I do for this symptom? Or love your program, but what exercises do I do for this goal that I have? And it became very clear to me that the exercises that were in the MSing Link and the calendars were helping them, but they weren't able to correlate how this could help them with their specific symptoms or with their specific goals. So I created something called the index. And in the index, I list which specific exercises to do based on specific goals and specific symptoms. And so that was a really great addition. I think it made things super clear for all of my MSing Link members. Another staple back then was that we would have a monthly guest speaker in the MSing Link. And this still is something that we do to this day. One main goal that I have for the MSing Link is increased accessibility, not only to MS specific physical therapy and exercises, but also MS resources and MS experts. And so for every month for the last 5 years, we have had at least one guest speaker in the program. And this often might be an MS neurologist or a pelvic floor therapist or a dietitian or nutritionist or a speech and language pathologist. There's so many different ones that we've had. And the perk is that we not only get to hear from them and learn what their area of expertise is, but my members can also ask them their own questions, their personalized, specific questions. And so that was super meaningful to me that that's something that carried through because that accessibility is so key. So often the clients that I have in the MSing Link only see their neurologist once a year or twice a year. And if they send them an email, they don't hear back from them, they hear back from someone else on the team. And so being able to provide that resource was really valuable. A few things that have changed inside the MSing Link in these last 5 years are the community, the accountability, and the deliverability. And what I mean by that is most things in the MSing Link back in the day were pre-recorded, except for that live guest speaker that I was just talking about. But now everything that I offer is live. So every week there is a new live class. For example, it might be my MS specific exercise class, or we have a yoga class, we have a seated dance class, we even have a class that focuses on calming our nervous system. So we have one class per week that is live and recorded. So if you can't make it live, there's still the option for you to go into the program and do it later, or you can repeat the class as often as you'd like. But I also offer live weekly check-ins. So every week on Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, I go live in the group and I just share what events are coming up this week, what events are coming up next week, and I also talk about a topic of the day. And so this allows me to have that connection with my MSing Link members and have them understand what's going on so that they are super clear with what they have available to them and schedule that in their calendar. And one thing that I am actually doing today after I hop off of this recording is our monthly group Q&A. And this is my favorite thing that I now offer, where every month all MSing Link members are invited to join me live on Zoom, and it's a free-for-all Q&A. Everyone submits their questions in advance and I just go through each question answering them one by one. And again, this gives me the capacity to really get to know my MSing Link members and to be able to help them on a personalized basis versus just generally speaking to all people with MS. So I love this specific event every month because I get to see them, they get to see me, we get to interact with each other, which is really fun. And that's something that's newer. I would say I've been doing that now for about 2 years. And so that was not something that was initially happening in the MSing Link. So this whole vibe of increased accessibility, increased community, and increased accountability has been huge within the last 2 to 3 years. We also have an online accountability group that helps with the community and the accountability. And we have fun challenges in there. Shout out to Cindy, who is our amazing MSing Link member, who hosts a challenge every single week for us, just to give us a fun focus for the week for those that want to participate. And I will just say that the camaraderie and the support and the true feeling of a community and family is inside that group. I absolutely love that group. And by the way, if you don't know what the MSing Link is, I will put a link in the show notes where you can learn the ins and outs of it. And there's even a behind the scenes video if you want to get a sneak peek of what it looks like on the inside. And the final update that I wanted to share with you that is one of the biggest changes within these 5 years is that I now have a team of amazing women who are working with me to help me in my vision of delivering the best MS-specific physical therapy style program for people with MS worldwide. So back when I first started, probably about 6 months in, so this was maybe around June of 2019 or so, I asked one of my really good friends at the time if she could help me out. And she would do things like help me on social media or help with emails. It was a lot of one-off tasks. And she was doing that for me for about 2 years. And it got to a point where she was so good, she was so helpful. I just continued growing and growing and growing. There were more people in the MSing Link. The demand got much higher that I needed someone to work for me full time. So naturally, I asked my friend, her name is Kate, if she would be open to working for me full time. And this was such a huge pivot in my journey because I have never had a full-time employee ever. And how scary was that to think that this person is leaving a stable job to come work for me full time and I am self-employed. You never know what's going to happen with business. And so it was a scary moment, but also a really empowering moment because the moment that I hired her, I knew that that was just the beginning of even more continued growth for the MSing Link. And I get the chill just thinking about it now, because that's exactly what happened. As soon as I hired her and there were two of us working on our tasks, we just continued to grow and grow and grow. More recently, within the last 6 or 7 months or so, I hired an amazing podcast editor. Her name is Jess, and she not only edits podcasts for me, but also some of my YouTube videos and social media posts. And she has been so helpful on this journey. And even more recent, within the last few months, maybe 2 or 3 months or so, I hired my newest VA full time, and her name is Jen. So now there are four of us working together: myself, Kate, Jess, and Jen. Three other people that are on my MSing Link team that truly make the MSing Link what it is today are the teachers that we have inside the MSing Link. So I first wanted to mention Patricia, who is my mom, and she is an MS trained yoga teacher, and she teaches a yoga class once a month inside the MSing Link. We also have Lisa, who is a brain gym instructor, and she teaches a class inside the MSing Link that teaches us how to reduce inflammation, calm our nervous system, and turn off fight or flight mode. And then finally, we have Veronica, who teaches our seated ballroom dancing classes. I was so excited to add her as a teacher into the program because there was recent research showing the benefits of seated ballroom dancing for people with MS. So she is actually a physical therapist assistant and a ballroom dancer, and she has been amazing. Our cheeks hurt from smiling after every class we take from her. And another way in which my team has grown within this last year is by adding MSing Link mentors. And these are veteran MSing Link members who love the MSing Link. They've been a member for a really long time, so they know the ins and outs of the program. And they came to me saying that they would be interested in helping new members understand the program. And so I call them my MSing Link mentors. Their names are Cindy, Tracy, Rita, and Lulu. And I trained them to know exactly where everything is. We review the content in the MSing Link consistently together so that all new members of the MSing Link or veteran members of the MSing Link can actually work with them one-on-one to help them understand the program and navigate where to find certain things and get them started on the right foot. Because as I've mentioned several times now, we've been up and running for 5 years, and everything that's ever been in the MSing Link is still in there. So there's a lot of information. And for some people, even though it's organized really well, there's some people that can get easily overwhelmed by all of the information. And so not only do I offer a monthly group orientation that I lead, where I hop on Zoom and I share my screen and explain how to navigate the program and how to get started, but I now have my MSing Link mentors. And my mentors work with my new MSing Link members one-on-one to make sure that they are getting started on the right foot. And finally, I would just like to share that I just did the math, and I went from helping that one person on that very first day to now, 5 years later, having helped 936 people with multiple sclerosis. And not only does that excite me, but it also excites me that these people are from about 23 different countries, which is so meaningful to me because that hits 2 points of my mission. One, helping as many people with MS as I can, but two, helping people worldwide, having a broader reach to those who don't have access to someone who is specialized in treating people with MS. So my heart just feels so full. I can't even tell you how rewarded I feel on a daily basis from working with my MSing Link members, because all of this that I've been saying today leads to outcomes like my clients being able to walk on a beach down an aisle for their daughter's wedding. That's happened several times. Or being able to go on vacation where there's cobblestone and feeling balanced, not being nervous that they're going to fall over. Or being able to stand up from the floor if they fell, or if they wanted to play with their grandkids, they feel confident standing up from the floor and don't have to worry about getting stuck down there. Or being able to go to a concert. One of my MSing Link members recently went to an Elton John concert, and she said it was the first concert she's been to in years. And the reason that she hadn't been going to concerts, even though it was something she loved, was because she didn't feel safe and stable, especially in crowds. But because of MSing Link exercises, she now feels safe to do so. So I hear these stories on a daily basis of real life situations, day-to-day situations where my MSing Link members are noticing improvements and noticing a better quality of life, better confidence, and feeling empowered. And that feels so rewarding to me that what I have built is actually helping people in real ways. So it has been an absolute honor to work with each and every MSing Link member, whether you are a current member or a former member. Thank you so much for trusting in me and the program that I built to help you. It truly means the world to me, and I cannot thank you enough. Lastly, I couldn't end this episode without thanking my parents and family and my friends. I remember being nervous to start this program when I first started because, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't know what the need was. I felt like there was a need, but I didn't know how many people actually needed this service. And my parents and my family and my friends from the very beginning had unshakable support in me. And still to this day, I think back and I'm like, wow, they never even questioned me about starting this. They never thought I was crazy. They were always on board from day one. And that support has meant the world to me. My mom is an amazing writer, and she was actually the one about 1 week before launching who came to Boston and stayed with me for about 1 week. And together we wrote the copy that would go on the MSing Link website. My parents were the very first people to send me my logoed shirts, which was so cool to see my logo on a t-shirt. I hadn't even thought of putting my logo on t-shirts at that point, but they believed in me enough and knew this was going somewhere where they saw that vision and they sent those to me, which was so meaningful. And my friends, when I was living in Boston, were so encouraging of me branching out on my own and fulfilling this mission that I had, and really encouraged me to take that next step, which meant leaving the job that I was currently at so that I could fulfill my purpose and pursue my mission even more on my own. So, if by chance any of my friends or family members are listening, I just wanted to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.